Welcome to HIP. This is season 2, and we're kicking off with Tom from Go Large Build and Design. Welcome.
Design and build.
Design and build. Oh, I've even got it written in front of me. Thanks for that. So tell us a little bit about what it is you do and how you kind of started and where you're at.
Yeah, so basically, well, it'll be 12 years this month. Started Go Large, design and build. Started really doing sort of small extensions and mainly, in all honesty, landscaping and driveways, etc. And the slight renovations that we get in. That was just me and Phil. 12 years on, we've now got 18 guys and we do full builds from ground up. Still do the outside work as well, but that normally comes in with an extension or renovation or a new build. And the customer obviously asks for additional work. And that's where we're at, really.
All going well then?
Very well, yes. Always busy. I think a very good reputation. So hopefully that helps us and aids us to get all the work that we get.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we've worked together for around 5 years, on and off.
Yep.
We know each other quite well. We know the good parts and the
tough,
challenging parts, of what each of us do.
Correct.
And one of the things I think even now I find difficult to advise clients on when they're looking at an extension or a new build is where to kind of start with it and when to get you guys in to get a quote, because obviously you need a set of information to be able to give a price, but then there's a long way to go before a client knows if it's even viable, because you read these things online that say, oh, you can get groundwork done for 20k and that's your whole extension, where we both know that's not the case.
No.
And it's just being able to get people to the point of something tangible. So where would you say people need to start and when?
I think it's a tough one. I think, in all honesty, obviously people get an idea in their head, which is the initial, oh, that'd be nice to do. The thing that they then go wrong is they go to Google and they type in, how much will an extension cost? And obviously then they'll get a per square metre price, which ordinarily, depending on obviously 10 years ago to now, is obviously doubled in price. But you don't get included steel work, windows, doors. You know, sliding doors can cost anything from 5 to 20 grand, depending on the spec. But in all honesty, so I find it tough for a customer because they'll get an idea in their head. And obviously, you know yourself that you have to go through the place of, if it's too big, you got planning. But do you want to pay for planning? Do you want to pay for an architect, structural engineers, building drawings? If in reality, that's not feasible because the budget's not there. Obviously, people's budget needs to be opened up. And as you know, it's not a case of once you've got your build cost, then you need the finish cost. So you've got your kitchens, you've got your paint, you've got your flooring, tiling. And
guttering, skirting boards, all the things people
internal
miss.
Doors, which we know and we obviously love between us, that you can go and get a door for 30 quid.
Yeah.
But in reality, I've got a bit of a door fetish and they need to be a nice solid hardware and door that's going to cost you anything between 150 to now you get the aluminium doors that can cost up to £1,000 each.
Easily, yeah.
So for me, customers really, I think it's from the customer's point of view, obviously they want to get a budget cost. For us, it's hard sometimes because we can go in there and say, what do you want? And they want a 4 by 6 metre extension. They want to open up the house, hit the mic. And we can give them a ballpark figure. But depending on now, because structural calculations have advanced so much from when we started 10 years ago, it would be put a beam in there, padstone that end, that'll be sufficient. As we're now, most engineers are over engineering things just obviously to cover their own backs. And obviously there's pad stones to be put in, there's columns to be put in, which adds cost not only for the material, but obviously it's very labour intensive. So it's hard to get an accurate ballpark, but ordinarily you won't be, you could be £10,000 out on a ballpark just due to structural calculations. So it's hard, but I think if a customer goes in with their eyes open and you give them a cost regarding, say to them, right, okay, it's going to cost, best case, you're going to say 30 grand, worst case, 50. Then it gives them, can we afford the 50? And then can we afford the additional costs. So yourselves, like the kitchens, etc.
The bathrooms.
The bathrooms, because we all know they're trying to keep to a schedule, especially for a builder, because we'll start an extension and then the customer will go, well, while you're here, do you mind pricing up the 2 bathrooms? Or, oh, actually, while you're here, do you mind giving us a price for the landscaping? Which is great for us because obviously it's a continual amount of work, but not for the next customer who's been waiting 4 months and all of a sudden you've got to try and fit in someone else's additional work to try and push forward.
Yeah, and schedules are a whole different thing, so how do you tend to manage that? Is it something that you then schedule in for a later date as a separate job, or do you try to run it on?
We try and run it on because obviously once you're there, it's easier and more cost effective for a customer to be there than it is to pull off site, clear site, take your skips, take your boards, take your on-site toilet, and then move on and then bring it all back, because then it's an additional cost. But if we're on site, obviously what we can do is then try and talk to the customer who's next in line and try and push that forward maybe a couple of weeks. So we've got then the 2 weeks to be able to push the job to completion, get the garden done, get the bathroom done. But obviously ordinarily people have been waiting 3 to 4 months for that build, so they're not necessarily impressed by that. But by the time you come to the customer and you start on their works, they fully appreciate it because they see the standard of the work and then they'll want additional work. So it has a bit of a knock-on effect.
Also, it means that you're there as opposed to a couple of odd guys there, maybe a day off, day away. You're focused and concentrating on that new job that's starting.
Exactly that. Well. So obviously in the trade, they call it hospital jobs, which a lot of builders will do. So they'll take your deposit, they'll build you half an extension, and then all of a sudden they'll disappear for 2 weeks. Can't get back to the job because they've got something tied in. As where if they alleviate that little bit of pressure at the beginning to allow you to finish the other job, then obviously you can continuate, have the guys there, get the job done without letting people down, basically. Mm. Communication is key.
Communication is key, definitely. You mentioned there about kind of other builders going away from site and things. What key things would you say to people who are looking for a builder? What are the good signs that you're dealing with someone who's going to take responsibility and care over their works? And what would you say the red flags would be?
Well, ordinarily, obviously, it's quite a tough one, but if you get a builder come to your house and you might get 3 or 4 quotes for your build. Obviously, we know that some builders will be so busy that they'll just pluck a number out of the sky and give you a stupid quote, hoping that you might just pull on the line and take it. But for me, if a builder can do a job within the next month, then I'll say it's a red flag, because in all honesty, the way the industry is, it's quite busy. Our merchants, they were on like a 1 to 2 day delivery time. They're on like a week delivery time now. So that shows how it's improving. And obviously there's meant to be an economic crisis, but everyone seems to be spending on the house. So if you had a builder around, obviously for me personally, I think it's more about how you get to grips with a builder. So as a customer yourself, obviously you would have had builders come round and you see them, you speak to them. It's not about only price. Obviously you get a feel for a builder, and I think that initial contact goes a long way, but then obviously the cost does come into it. So red flags for me would be sort of, like I say, availability. If it's too big, if it's a short lead time, you got to question why, but then you got to do your diligence on the builder itself. So you want to go and see previous builds, you want to speak to the customers. And if that all ticks the right boxes, and you're happy with the price and the person, then I think it's the way to go.
Yeah. And I think adding to that, as someone who deals with a lot of clients who will get builders quotes across the board. Yeah. And then working with them, sometimes people go with the highest ones, medium and lower. But one of the things I think that tends to be quite common with those lower quotes, all the ones that are detailed kind of screw for screw as well, because you do get those builders who have kind of put it into a system. Yeah. Is the extras that can occur because we didn't account for this or we didn't account for that. And there's no way that the average person can know if 10,000 screws are going to be enough. It sounds like it's going to be enough.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's the funny thing.
And the amount of times, and it happens to us when we're doing projects as well, people will come in and say, but these people are 20% less. And you need to have a look at why that is in detail and potentially sit down with your preferred supplier or builder and work through why that is, to see if there's an over or under specification. And my experience with those lower quotes is that clients find that there are a lot more add-on costs that weren't appreciated on that initial quote.
Correct.
And it's all too common that happens, I think.
That happens everywhere. So that was what I would, obviously when we price, we try and break down the quote to a degree of what you're actually going to achieve within the project. Obviously, we don't break it down to exactly that. So every nail, every screw. Although there's companies out there, if you send a drawing, they will send you an itemized quote that allows you to break it down to screws needed per stud wall, this, that, the other. But that's too much for a customer. They want to see that obviously they're getting the build, they're getting the plastering, they're getting the decorating if you needed, flooring, obviously the finish, and making sure what you're actually going to walk away from is a complete project. As where you do get builders, unfortunately, which I've heard many a story, that you'll start a project and they'll go, oh, I didn't know you wanted bricks to go with that. Oh, you wanted blocks and sand and cement. Oh, okay. Well, that's going to be an extra 10 grand. Well, we've already paid you 15. Well, yeah, no, but it's an extra 10 if you want actually bricks and blocks. So they've got to be.
Sometimes it is that absurd.
It is, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, obviously, we pride ourselves on not only quality but relationships with customers. So we don't really advertise. If people looked on our social media now, it is terrible. So all our work is all recommendation, and that's 12 years recommendation. So every customer, every lead is someone recommended them to us. So hopefully we come across well, and we obviously do a great job to be able to get that. But unfortunately for some customers, if they don't look into the background of building companies, they will get stung. I mean, over 12 years, we've probably gone back to 8 jobs where unfortunately a customer has said, oh, well, the builder's been in, he's put the roof, he's got to the steel bit, and he said it's too much for him and he's walked off, but he's already took £40,000 of a £50,000 project, which from my side, obviously because we're so open and honest with our payment schedules and contracts, I always try and make sure the customers are in front. So when we get paid, that's our money, but it's paying out the bills plus obviously the profit of the business. As where I think customers need to go in a bit more eyes open and not just be frivolous. We're like, oh, we need another 10 grand. Okay, here's 10 grand. Because
there's a fear though, because
they'll leave.
They'll leave. They're not going to do the work right. They're going to cut corners. And it is that whole scaremongering of media and the history of builders. And unfortunately, some of them are still there. I do hope they're retiring. But, you know, it does still happen, as you say.
Oh, 100%.
Are there ways that clients can protect themselves? So the genuine question, are there bodies, I don't know, Master of Builders, is it?
Federation of Master Builders. So we're a part of those. So basically there's ways of protecting yourself. But obviously that comes down to contract as well. So obviously any job really should have a contract written, which will say, obviously anything from the quotation, what's involved, the client's happy. Once it's fully finished, you pay obviously the final amount. So what we try and do is break that down into obviously a payment schedule, which will be like a deposit, brick and block completion, floor completion, plastering completion, electrics. So therefore, over a scale of maybe a 3-month project, you've maybe got 8 payments in place, but you don't pay it until you physically see it. So sorry, go on. Sorry.
So with a deposit, in my mind, that's before any work's done to secure the dates. Is that the case with yourself?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
Only due to the fact, I'll be totally honest, it's hassle for accounting because it just adds another element to it before you even started the project. Yeah. If I was in a case of having to find work and obviously sort of struggling and people were putting down deposits to hold the dates, then I'd probably appreciate it and probably do it. But because we are so busy, I don't need to necessarily do that. If someone said to me next week, oh, the job you're starting at the end of August, unfortunately we can't the funds aren't there now and we can't do it, the people who are waiting in October, I'm sure they jump at the chance to be in August.
Yeah.
So we're in the luxury position of that. But the deposit for me is just a case of when we actually finally start a project. So honestly, I put it on there as a commencement date. So we start digging, obviously we get the groundworks in. Because by the time, if they don't pay the deposit then, which is ordinarily I'll invoice it on the date we start, that gives them 5 days to pay it. So that first week. But by the time we've done the first week, ordinarily we might be up to concreted. So therefore, within probably 4 days of next week, they're going to be up to block and beam completion, which means there's going to be another payment, but you won't pay it until you see it. So that as I said, in essence, although the deposit has been paid, they're sort of in front and they can see what's being done, rather than saying, I need 50 grand now. Why? As where I would, if it was me as a customer, obviously it's easy to say as I'm a builder, but as a customer, if a builder came to me and said, I want 30 grand now,
that would be a red flag.
I'd be going, why? And don't get me wrong, because again, we've been going 12 years. So we've got a lot of leverage when it comes, we've run a business properly for 12 years, rather than the odd builder maybe I've heard rumours of that might on a Friday get paid, they pay their lads and they've probably got 30 quid left to spend down the pub. For us, we've always run it right. So initially we'd get the money, we'd make sure we had all the tools built, and we built the company up. So we're in a good position. As where some builders who might be starting off, that doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they're starting off a business. They might not have the collateral or the account with Jewson's, MKM, Build Base that allows them to spend 10 grand. They might only have an account that allows them to spend 2 grand. So therefore, if they're starting a project and they need a digger, they need to get rid of mark away, then they're not going to have the money to be able to put it out there. So if a customer's going to if they're going to pay a deposit, initially that's going to sound quite high, what I'd be asking from my builder is, what is this covering? So make sure that what you are paying is going to be within them first maybe 2 weeks of outlay, rather than giving them 50 grand. Because if the job's 70 and they're paying you 50, there's questions to be asked.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really good advice in being able to understand what that's covering.
Yeah.
And what would, kind of moving on from that, are there any common areas that tend to cause complications in builds? Anything that you know is kind of a bit more high risk than other areas?
I would say ordinarily, obviously, it's a tough one, but if there's any problem areas, they all point to the foundations, because obviously as a builder, ordinarily we'll unless it's had a foundation plan that will give us certain depths, everything is planned as a 1.2 metre dig. So, and obviously the authorities have to come out, so the private building control or the local council, and they will then say if they're happy with the dig. Sometimes they might be, because there's nothing around. Sometimes there's oak trees across the road,
and
they make you go 2 metres deep, even though it's 12 metres away. So, and obviously as a builder, we can't argue with that, because if you want your job signed off and certificated at the end, we need to do exactly what they say. Unfortunately, that then becomes an additional cost straight away at the beginning of the job. Yeah. But I do go in and try and make the customers aware that if we have issues, the likelihood is it will be foundations, because we can't see what's underneath, and any structural, because although it's obviously put on the structural calculations, until you start uncovering joists, ceilings, floors, you don't know what you're going to come up with. So there would be the two problem areas that ordinarily might cause either additional cost or headaches for both customer and the builder.
Yeah. Fab. And I did kind of prep you about this, but I'm going to dig into some of the common frustrations.
Yes.
So I think it would be useful for people to understand why it can take so long for builders to respond and to get those quotes back, because I think it takes somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks for quotes to come back.
You went wrong.
What is that, and why does that occur? And would you say that's normal for most of the industry?
I would say it's normal for the industry. I wouldn't say it's what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say it's on purpose, basically. So basically, my dream going 12 years in, obviously I've got the squad that I need. I've got a great team behind me, because any builder's only as good as his team. If it's just me, the job's not going to get done. With my team, I trust them to do a great job. But the problem is, obviously, I'm still going to site. So we have a site project manager. We have obviously my business partner, Phil. But when I go out to a quote, I have all the intentions of seeing the quote, and I think that's just quite easy. I'll get that done. But in the meantime, I mean, my weeks feel like days. So as a customer, they'll go, okay, when can I have the quote? And I'll say, and then all honesty, when I leave an appointment, I'll say, in around 2 weeks, you'll have your quote. Well, sometimes I might log on and I'll see it. I'm fortunate enough to have a lady in the office who will write down when I've been there, what the address is, sort of scope of works, and gives me a list to make sure I can work through it and make sure the people who are waiting are getting them the first. But it doesn't necessarily always work out like that, because I will then be in the office, and I've had this discussion probably with yourself before. If I get in the office at 6, 2 hours I will get more done than I will get done from 8 till 4. Because from 8, the merchants are open, the guys are on site, the problems start occurring. Oh, we need this, we need that. Oh, can you speak to Tony? Can you do this? Can you do that? And all of a sudden, then maybe 4 hours you've set aside to try and get them quotes minimized is disappeared. And before you know it, that was Monday and it's now Friday.
And your priority has to be
the
keeping
jobs
the jobs moving. And people appreciate that once you're there, but it's
Correct.
that understanding in the interim as to what's kind of happening. And it's not a case of ignoring them and not getting back to them. It's just, you have to be responsive.
Exactly that. So you'll be the first to tell everyone that if you ring me, the likelihood is you'll get a message that says, I'll call you back. That's not rude. That's because my phone is non-stop and I'm either on the phone or I'm on doing I'm busy at that exact time, which ordinarily, as we first came in here, made sure my phone's on silent, because I've probably had 10 missed calls while I've sat here.
I wonder how many of them we've picked up.
So it is tough. And like I said, my dream would be that in reality, if I went to a job a week later, they would have their quote. Because as a customer, if it's something outside a building, and I appreciate it. If I go somewhere, I'm almost the same person as a customer. Oh, have you done that quote yet? Oh, have you got that quote yet? Because you want to find out. Obviously, you want to budget for it. You want to do this. You want to do that. Oh, I've already got 3 quotes in. I haven't got your quote yet. So that is my dream, to try and a weekly turnaround, but it's not always as straightforward as that, because if you had a week where there was nothing, there was no problems, there was no issues, everything was going smooth. But in all honesty, like I say, 12 years, we try to aim perfection on all jobs, but that's just not how building is, because you've got architect's drawings that are not always correct. You've got structural calculations that you need to get over, and all this needs site visits. The customer wants to be reassured that you're going to do it right, or the problem that has occurred because the drawing isn't right, we need to overcome it. I can't do that sitting in the office doing quotes. I need to be on site. And as you say, customers don't necessarily take that in and appreciate it until you're on their job. And then once you're on their job, they think, oh, actually, I get it now. Oh, I'm standing with Tom and his phone's just rang 10 times, but he's said that I'll call him back after I've been there. So it becomes reality once you're involved within the project.
I think another thing that I said at the start, we've worked on and off with each other, and this is partly because of how differently our businesses work, and we had to understand what those differences were and how we overcome that.
Of course.
And I think it's funny because we do recommend you as a local builder, and we've worked with you directly and indirectly. And sometimes when we've worked with you indirectly, clients have brought up exactly what I'm going to bring up with you now. And that is the fact that you work with a very loose to no written schedule.
Correct.
And very few plans.
Yes.
how do you do that? Because I've got no, like, if it's not there, like, for me to move along when it does go a little bit wrong, then I'm going to forget something. But how do you do that? Why do you do that?
I think, in all honesty, like, again, obviously, as you've been doing it a long time, so have we, regarding our industries. But what it is, if I gave someone a schedule, week 1 foundations, we get rain for a week. That then gets moved on. So although you're giving someone a schedule of works, depending on, because there's so many changes. So you start digging and it's an easy dig. It takes you 2 days to dig it.
Perfect.
You start a dig. It's as hard as anything. It takes you 6 days to dig. Within a week, that schedule could be absolutely blown out the water. And I'd spend most of my time people chasing me for quotes, but I'm in the office changing schedules. So for me, it's more of a case of, obviously, ideally, when we speak to a customer, they will initially go, right, so what's the initial plan? So we'll say, well, within a week, we should be up to sort of DPC level, maybe 7 days. From there, within another week, we'll be up to roof height. Another week, the roof will be on. Another week, roof completion. So within, say, 4 weeks, you've got your roof completed, you're watertight. And then everything from there is all internal. And that's when, again, we'll come into structural calculations. And depending on how relevant they actually are to the actual build, because we all love architects and structural engineers. But unfortunately, when they do a drawing, it's on paper.
And they don't necessarily know exactly what the construction was. They weren't there. They don't know what that original builder did or what the modification that had previously been done.
A structural engineer and architect's favourite word is assumed. Or to be confirmed on site with builder.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And then you've got the structural engineer needing to come back out, potentially negotiations over what it's going to look like with the client.
Correct.
Getting the material, getting all of the guys in place again.
Exactly that. So that's why it's hard to stick to a schedule and try and keep it to it. But for me, and obviously it comes down to, we'll go out, and if people have got drawings, as long as it's obviously a detailed drawing, we can build the project. The only thing where I do struggle with is if certain engineers, etc., if you know them, obviously you know, you use your one, we use ours, and if you know them, they're more willing to go, oh, do you mind coming to site to see, because we've got a question regarding the column or the steel that's going in, there's one there already, this, that, the other. Obviously, if you haven't got a relationship with a structural engineer, then that can create delays, because they get paid obviously quite a hefty amount, which is fine, because obviously they've got insurances that they need to cover. But that then becomes a big issue, because you've got massive delays of trying to get someone out on site to then look at it and then go, oh yeah, that needs changing. Okay, so that beam that was meant to be used and has been not necessarily ordered, but the actual steel size that's been ordered, so it's at the fabricator's ready to be cut and the stiffness to be put in, has now gone.
Yeah, completely. Irrelevant.
So, oh, hi. Yeah, that steel you've got in for us, we don't need that anymore. We need this one. So therefore, it's just a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
But the more, it is hard, because from our side of the view, obviously we'll get a drawing, we'll get structural calculations. From that point, we'll give a customer a price. We then try and stick to that as best we can regarding, obviously, like say, foundations and structurals, depending. Obviously, touch wood, everything goes great. There's no additional costs. But if there is issues, ordinarily it will come down because the architect's drawing is not quite right, or the customer's had a change of heart. But that's more internal. So ordinarily you can get inside before that.
Just to come away from being a little bit negative, one of the really good things is, because of the team that you've got, and you've got quite a good crossover of trades, you don't just have a single person generally doing that one task. You do have a team that can be really reactive as well and flexible, and working with you. I think that flexibility is definitely something that we've appreciated.
Yeah.
And potentially taken advantage of on a few occasions, if I'm honest. But that is definitely something, although, and the other clients have said as well when we've gone back, really nice, felt a little bit out of control because they're people who need it all written down. But everything has always been addressed quickly and, updates sent and adjusted to how it needs to be. And I think that goes back to the costing side of things as well. So those people who are kind of that mid to upper end of those 3 quotes that most people get tend to have an understanding of, okay, there tends to be this amount of kind of just little additions or changes or adjustments that need to be made, and that's considered in that design, and that comes from experience as well.
100%. I mean, I can't honestly say that we start a project and what's drawn on that architect's drawing is exactly how a customer will have this house. Because, as soon as you start opening walls up, you're left with maybe a little nook, or you want it a bit bigger, or the room that you were going to put upstairs, actually, can we nick another foot? Nothing really ever stays to plan. Once your structure's in place, which obviously your planning will allow for that to be in place, externally, obviously visually, it's all the same. As soon as you get inside, customers then start to change things.
Decide they want a vaulted roof.
Correct.
And a Velux added.
Yes, exactly.
And then wonder why it was more money. I didn't realise that not putting that in was going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things happen, and everyone goes through this. And Andrea spoke about it as well. She said, "Oh, when she's going through her build, while you're here, can you just do this upstairs for me, because my house is a wreck." And you're kind of doing that level of work, and it's having the right people there to do it at that time.
Correct. And that's where the issue sometimes comes in, because there was, "Oh, you got guys on site, can you do that?" And it's like, well, no, because actually he's not a carpenter. He's there to, I don't know, he's there to do the floor tiling. He's a tiler. We can't build a cupboard upstairs.
I wouldn't want to see your tiler building a cupboard, that's for
You
sure.
Definitely wouldn't. No, I'm 100%.
That's just part of the nature of
The beast.
Yeah, indeed, definitely.
I think, I think with but that relates back to what we said about earlier on with delays and et cetera as well, because customers will always add. There's, like I say, there's not been a job where a customer's not added, "Oh, actually, can we change the internal doors?" Well, that's fine. But if you've got 10 doors, and we spoke about doors, in between 150 to 300, all of a sudden that's an extra 1,500 to $3,000 plus the fitting.
Yeah.
So,
and but also the hinges, is it a sliding door? The handles, all of these things. Do you want a lock on there? Do you want it to work like this? And all of that adds on to that 150 to 300 pounds as well.
Getting rid of the old doors.
Yeah.
Installation of the door. Or like you say, if it's a pocket door, then you've got the frame. The frame's probably £300 before you start. So all these niceties that you see on a drawing, it adds cost quite quick.
Yeah.
And nothing's cheap. And that's not me trying to put anything, sugarcoat it. Nothing is cheap out there now. It's when we get prices back, it's almost like an extension we done prior to COVID would be 30 grand. That's now 55 grand.
Easily.
Yeah, easily. I mean, you don't quote many extensions that are less than 60 now. And that's plus VAT. So that's 72. And then you've got the ongoing cost of everything else that's got to finish it.
Yeah.
So we try to make, as you do, you try and make your customers going with eyes open, because there's nothing worse than you've got a budget, you think you've created the budget and it's right, but then you get your kitchen fitted and you've done your build, and then you've got no doors, you've got no floor, you've got no paint on the walls.
Or a bill saying here's an extra 20k.
Exactly. And then you're divorced.
Yeah, marriage counsellors. We're all marriage counsellors as well. Definitely. So yeah, fab. I mean, is there anything else that you think people who are looking to undertake a home renovation and building work, they should be considering at the early stages, or be prepared for during the build, that people perhaps sometimes
overlook? I think, to be honest, it comes to a point where obviously the builder turns up, we build it, as I say, we build the structure. So we're building the structure. There's not really a lot of input from the customer at that point, because we're setting out, we're digging the foundations, we're doing the brickwork, we're doing the block work. You get the odd customer who has probably thought about this for 5 years, and that's rare. But you do, and they'll know exactly where they want electrical points. They'll know exactly where they want radiators, or they might want underfloor heating. But then you'll get the other customer, which is the other extreme, where you'll do you'll be onto it and you'll say, well, within about 2 weeks, we'll be coming inside. So we need to start thinking about removing the kitchen, getting that out the way, because obviously we're going to need to dismantle it. So anything in there, yeah, no problem. 2 weeks elapse. You come in, the kitchen's still full. It's got plates, bowls, half-eaten Cheerios in the sink. And we're like, well, remember we had that conversation and we spoke about it Friday. We're going to take your kitchen out today. And then you get the next involvement of that is that obviously once that's ripped out, we are going to need answers of where you want lighting. Obviously we've got an electrical plan, we've got this, but if you want additional sockets or radiators, this, that, the other, if you want, yourself, LED strip lighting here, there and everywhere, which everyone seems to have, we're going to need to know about it. And then you'll get to a point of just about to start plastering and the customer will go, oh, we said about, can we change that to over there? Well, you see all them plasterboards, they need to come off.
And restart, yeah.
And rerun the cables. And that's obviously from our point of view. So at the minute, we've got an 18-team strong team. So anyone within my capable team, I can get them to do the jobs. But the problem is mainly, obviously, we subby out our electrics and our plumbing. Same as every company, because you'd have to, it's too many rules and regulations, obviously costs, insurance to have your own sort of plumber, electrician on site
and also
to keep them busy.
Work,
to keep them busy. So we have to schedule that in. So when a customer says, oh, actually, we wanted the light switch on that wall, that's fine. Let me just ring my electrician. And luckily enough, obviously, I've got a very good bond with my electricians, and ordinarily they will try and break their backs to try and get there. But sometimes it's just not feasible and it might be 2 days. Well, 2 days wait to try and move a switch because the last minute. So the only thing I would say is, and it is hard to do because most customers can't see it until it's there. That it needs to be right in front of them to be able to visualize what's going on, which I get. Obviously, being in the trade, we can see it. We can see you design it, so you can see it all day long. But all I would say is if you're a customer, you really, although you've wanted this extension for a year and you've waited for planning, I would be within that time frame of getting your builder's quotes, getting your prices, getting the planning, sit down with your drawings and try and walk around. I know it's hard because it's on paper, but walk around your extension and just think, oh, that would be good there, or we want spots there, or we want this. Because what you don't want is delay because you've made indecisiveness. But what you definitely don't want is you've made the decisions, it's been plastered, and all of a sudden you're not happy and you want to change it, because that incurs cost. Because once it's plastered and it's done, oh, can we move that to there? You can, but I'm going to have to get the electrician back to chase the wall, put that back. They're going to charge you £50 an hour. And then I'm going to have to charge you
to repair,
re-skim it, which is going to cost you probably another 250, 300 quid. So it's just about the forward thinking. And if they can be as prepared as possible, that will make it a lot smoother for everyone.
I think an earlier episode that we did spoke about, if you are talking to someone about your kitchen and you're having a wider job undertaken, having a conversation about those other areas as well becomes quite important, because you might get some input into where you're thinking about putting the seating might not work best for you, that kind of casual seating, or where the kids are going to do their homework.
Yeah.
And again, that means that you can think about where those sockets are going to go and what you might need in those areas earlier on.
Yes.
And although I may have slipped up on one you're about to do and not be as far ahead as you'd like, because of answer machine like ping pong, we do try to get out when you are putting those bricks in, when you're up to damp course, to check out and get those plans over earlier.
Yes.
And having people thinking and considering about where they're plugging in their blender or where they're charging their phone.
Correct.
Laptops and things, just thinking about those things really early on, so they've been able to consider it and it's written down.
Rather than on completion, you go back 2 weeks later and they're sitting at the table with an extension lead.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Or they've tacked a cable to the wall and what have you done?
Why?
Oh, we forgot we needed to put that there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So forward thinking is a major part. But as I say, I fully appreciate it's hard because you can't visualize it, So until you can do that, which not many people can, because it's maybe their first ever extension, it might be their sixth, but some people just haven't got the vision. So if they can't forward think it, they can't ask for it.
Yeah.
But ordinarily we won't, if it's planned and it's scheduled, and obviously in the best will we've got would be we first fix a house so that all the electrics are running, all the plumbing's done within 3 days, and then the next day you'll cover it up. But ordinarily we'll sort of give it a sort of maybe a day just to be then to run around with the customer to overlook and make sure that actually everything they do want is in place, and then board it. Because like I say, the last thing you want is an additional cost. For us, we are very lenient anyway, as you rightly know. We won't be a case of, okay, we need to take that board off. Like, it's more of a case of when it's plastered, it's finished, you got your skirt and you got your doors on, and then you make a change. You don't want to be doing that. And not only as a business, you don't want to be doing that, but as any part of the team. If you've got a carpenter there and he's gone and done a door lining and put a door in, and then the customer says, actually, can we put the door over there? As a tradesman, there's nothing worse than doing a job twice. You want to do it once right, and move on to the next job.
Yeah. And just be satisfied with what you achieved.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
But again, we are lenient, but it's not a case of the business being lenient. It's a tradesman. A tradesman always wants to do a job once and once right. When they start having to tinker it, then it obviously gets frustrating for them, and it's hard for them to then focus on trying to put it somewhere else when they've just put it somewhere already.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much.
No problem at all.
That brings us to the end. So it's been lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And you'll find the link to Go Large and Tom's team on the website and in all of the comments. So feel free to get in touch if you're having a build or renovation in the Milton Keynes area.
Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us and listening to HIP, your home improvement podcast by Lima Kitchens. We hope you enjoyed the topics we discussed today. Feel free to hit like, share and subscribe to get details on further topics we will be discussing. If you have any topics you'd like us to address and talk about directly, please feel free to send them through. We'd love to hear from you.